My sister excluded my husband from her wedding guest list. Despite this, we attended, only for her fiancé to publicly push him and later spread falsehoods online. My sister and I have always shared a complex bond. We cherished one another, yet we weren't the kind to confide every thought or secret. We'd clashed occasionally, but those disputes were typically minor, revolving around petty issues or differing views on family dynamics. Overall, I held her dear. I celebrated her successes, stood by her, and was present for every milestone in her life until this wedding fiasco. Our relationship was strong until it unraveled. I've been wed to Dan for 4 years, and he blends seamlessly into our family. Dan is the sort who goes out of his way to bond with those I love, a trait I deeply value. Having no siblings of his own, he treated my sister like one, forging a playful connection that mirrored sibling banter. They constantly teased each other, and he was always there when she needed support. She'd been struggling with a startup for about a year, aiming to launch a small online jewelry business. Dan offered her a substantial interest-free loan to kickstart it, and I was touched by his generosity. So when her wedding invitation arrived with an odd note requesting I leave Dan at home, I was stunned. It felt like a betrayal, given their closeness. I reread the note multiple times, wondering if it was a jest or if I'd overlooked some hidden meaning. Dan brushed it off, assuming she was plotting a wedding day prank, but I felt uneasy. I texted her, posing light questions about the event, but her replies were evasive, citing wedding planning chaos. Unable to get clarity, I called our mother. When I asked if she knew why Dan was uninvited, she chuckled, saying, "You know your sister's quirky ways." She suggested it was a playful act, perhaps for the reception. Her dismissive response left me more confused, but I began to think it was a harmless joke. Still uncertain, I couldn't see how bringing Dan would cause harm. After all, it was a wedding, a joyous family gathering, not a place for cryptic rules or games. We arrived at the venue together. Immediately, we noticed odd glances from others. I tried to ignore them, assuming they were admiring our formal attire, chosen to honor the occasion. Then I spotted my sister, chatting with her bridesmaids. When her eyes landed on Dan, her expression shifted from surprise to fury. She marched over, her voice quaking as she demanded why Dan was there. She didn't bother lowering her voice. Her sharp tone drew attention. The tension was palpable, and I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. I tried to pull her aside for a private talk, but she insisted Dan wasn't welcome and accused me of disregarding her wishes. To de-escalate, I mentioned the note seemed like a prank, even backed by Mom's opinion, and urged her to explain the issue calmly. She didn't. Instead, her shouting intensified, claiming I was ruining her day. Her fiancé, noticing the commotion, rushed over. I hoped he'd mediate, but he instantly sided with her, glaring at Dan. Then, without warning, he shoved Dan, ordering him to leave. I was floored. The situation had spiraled far beyond what I'd imagined, and I was torn between defending my husband and salvaging family ties. But it was too late for peace. Heartbroken, I took Dan's hand, and we left. That night, I was in shock. Dan was subdued, clearly hurt despite not voicing it. He hadn't meant to cause trouble. We genuinely thought we were in the clear. I tried calling my sister and mother to resolve the misunderstanding and apologize for any unintended offense, but neither answered. 2 days later, Dan showed me a post by my sister's husband. It was a scathing rant about disruptive individuals trying to sabotage their day, implying some were fixated on him and his wife. Though unnamed, it was obvious he meant us. Seeing such accusations broadcast publicly felt like a knife in the back. This man, who should have embraced family, was vilifying us for simply attending. It was mortifying and painful, leaving me powerless. I reached out to my sister and mother again, hoping post-wedding calm might foster dialogue, but got no response. All I wanted was to understand my mistake. Was I wrong to assume Dan would be accepted? Should I have taken the note seriously, despite its absurdity? I thought attending showed support for her milestone, but my actions backfired. I shared the ordeal with close friends, who were equally baffled by my sister and her husband's hostility. One friend suggested her husband might be envious of Dan's bond with her or feel threatened by him. It seemed far-fetched, but it was the only theory that held water. Since the post, I've heard nothing from my sister or her husband. My family is fractured, with some relatives offering sympathy while staying neutral. It's painful that my misstep dragged them into this chaos. Now, I second-guess every choice and conversation. Then, suddenly, our phones were flooded with messages, not of support, but of condemnation. Relatives, friends, even distant acquaintances labeled me everything from a troublemaker to a jealous sibling who ruined my sister's day. Some messages were so vicious I thought they were pranks, but their seriousness sank in. A cousin texted, "If you cared for your sister, you wouldn't have caused that scene." Another relative accused me of sabotaging the wedding out of envy. Her husband's social media post had sparked a wildfire, painting me as obsessed with their relationship, prompting others to judge me without hearing my side. He suggested I deliberately humiliated them by bringing Dan. Despite my genuine belief, it was a misunderstanding. The fallout reached Dan's family, who were fond of my sister and shocked by the events. His mother called mine to clarify, only to be told I'd made my bed. My own mother's words, relayed by Dan's mom, crushed me. She believed the lies that I'd tried to upstage my sister. Worse, a pattern emerged in the family's messages. They bought the narrative that I was fixated on my sister's husband, trying to meddle in their lives. It was absurd, yet lifelong relatives believed it. They even suggested I'd used Dan to hurt her, despite his brotherly bond with her. My sister, meanwhile, went silent, letting her husband's toxic posts speak for her while our family tore me apart. Desperate for answers, I contacted her best friend, who hinted my sister was overwhelmed by pre-wedding stress and influenced by her fiancé's views on family. Apparently, he'd shown possessive tendencies, even clashing with her friends before the wedding. This clue made me wonder if he was isolating her, starting with me. My fears were confirmed when a meddling cousin sent me a screenshot of another post by her husband. He claimed to be free of toxic relatives trying to manipulate his wife, implying Dan and I were vengeful. It was humiliating and alarming as he painted us as long-standing threats. The lies spread to mutual friends, isolating me in my own community. I couldn't let it go. I called my sister one last time, craving her perspective on the accusations. She didn't pick up, but hours later she texted, "You went too far. There's no fixing this. I hope you're satisfied with your choices." Her words felt like the death of our bond. Devastated, I considered posting my side online, but Dan urged restraint, warning it would escalate things. He was right. Defending myself publicly might make me look guilty. But Dan was suffering too. His friends, exposed to the post, questioned his actions, unaware of the note or context, branding him a troublemaker. It's hard to express the anger, betrayal, and sorrow I feel. Dan has been nothing but supportive to my sister, yet he's being vilified. While I wish I could undo attending, I suspect this conflict was inevitable. Her husband seems intent on cutting her off, and I was just the first target. I feel I've lost my sister and much of my family over one misjudgment, magnified beyond reason. Update: 2 recent developments, including a heated talk with my mother, have cast this ordeal in a disturbing new light. I visited her, determined to dispel the lies and understand why my family so readily believed the rumors. She was defensive, echoing the accusations that I'd sought attention and disrupted the wedding, even calling me a troublemaker for straining my sister's marriage. Then she said something chilling. "You should have been more careful, given how your husband feels about your sister." My stomach dropped. I pressed her to clarify. She revealed that my sister had grown uneasy about Dan since her engagement, a fear fueled by her fiancé, Trent. Apparently, when my sister shared her sibling-like bond with Dan, Trent twisted it, convincing her Dan was romantically interested and untrustworthy. He insisted Dan's presence at the wedding would threaten their relationship. When I asked why she entertained such a ridiculous idea, my mother shrugged, suggesting people can hide their true feelings, implying Dan had harbored secret affection all along. I was livid. Trent's jealousy had warped Dan's kindness into something sinister, and my sister and mother had bought into it. My mother cited signs, like Dan's loan or quick help, as evidence, twisting his generosity into something perverse. She added that my sister had distanced herself from Dan to appease Trent, who claimed I was enabling Dan's supposed obsession by bringing him around. I was dumbfounded. Trent had spun a narrative where Dan and I were plotting to derail their happiness, and it was working. I tried reasoning with my mother, insisting Dan had no motive to pursue my sister, and that we'd all been fine before Trent's influence. She wouldn't budge, claiming Trent saw truths others missed and was protecting my sister. I left feeling more wounded than ever. Trent's paranoia had severed my bond with my sister and tainted my mother's vi. Update 3. Things have unexpectedly improved, though I'm still processing the whirlwind. My parents seemed rattled by my message, likely realizing how absurd Trent's claims were. They reached out to relatives to discuss the situation, and while I don't know the details, it prompted a shift. I've received apologies from cousins, aunts, and uncles, some admitting they judged too quickly. I appreciate their remorse, but it stings that they so readily believed such nonsense. The idea that Dan, who saw my sister as a sibling, was inappropriate still hurts. But last night, something monumental happened, overshadowing everything. My sister appeared at my door, looking wrecked, disheveled, tear-streaked, and exhausted. Despite our rift, my heart ached for her. I let her in, hoping for answers. She broke down, sobbing, and once composed, she revealed the truth about Trent. She explained they'd had a fierce argument, opening her eyes to his behavior. Through tears, she admitted Dan wasn't the first person Trent accused of wanting her. It started subtly, with Trent commenting on men staring at her in public. She initially saw it as protectiveness, but his accusations escalated, targeting people in her life, especially Dan. Trent's convincing concern made her trust his narrative about Dan, leading her to exclude him from the wedding without question. Post-wedding, his behavior worsened. He accused more people, even pressuring her to quit her job over a male colleague's supposed interest. She realized he was isolating her, controlling her relationships and independence. Shocked and betrayed, she saw his protectiveness as manipulation. She felt foolish for not recognizing it sooner and was devastated by how she'd treated us. She apologized sincerely to me and Dan, regretting her role in the fallout. Her remorse was palpable, and I could see her pain. She's staying with us now, needing space to plan her next steps. It's a tough time, but I'm relieved the truth is out. Dan is cleared of the false accusations, and my family sees Trent's true colors. I'm here for my sister, and while I'm still processing, I'm grateful we can begin to heal. Update 4. I apologize for the delay in updating. These past months have been intense. Last time I shared how my sister recognized Trent's controlling nature. She returned to him, resolved to keep her job and resist his demands. But when she confronted him, he exploded, accusing her of infidelity and claiming her desire to work proved she was interested in other men. His unhinged reaction drove her back to me, heartbroken. We talked extensively, and she realized the relationship was untenable. She decided to end it and pursue a divorce. Trent reacted poorly, showing up at my house, begging for forgiveness and promising change. Despite his apparent remorse, my sister stood firm, knowing his actions had shattered trust irreparably. She's now navigating the divorce process, a painful journey, but I'm supporting her. Dan has kept his distance, understandably, given the strain on their bond, but he checks in, knowing she needs support. My parents have stepped up, helping with legal matters and offering emotional backing, which has been crucial. They've also apologized to Dan and me, especially Dan for believing Trent's lies. They finally see how baseless the accusations were. It's been a grueling ordeal, but it's brought clarity. My sister is coping, and our family has grown closer in some ways. Thank you all for your support. Your encouragement gave us strength to trust ourselves. I'm grateful for this community and for joining me in this wild family saga. If you enjoy Reddit family drama, subscribe and enable notifications to catch the next one.